Welcome back.
You said something that kind of struck me. You said something, it kind of touched on the glass ceiling. And you were fortunate enough to have a boss to tell you you reached that glass ceiling. I think we all, at some point in our careers, reach a point where our values may be in jeopardy, being compromised, and we may have to make a decision. When you figure that out, when you have that epiphany and you're stuck, what is your advice to someone who finds themselves stuck because they feel like they can't move further within their organization?
And that always has to do with seasoning. I got the epiphany because for years I had felt stuck. And
Did you know you were stuck
I knew I
before
was
he
stuck.
told you was stuck?
I knew I had been stuck for a long time.
But you needed something. You needed to be moved.
And that did it. That did it. For years I had, I was just kind of going through the motion.
Right.
And I remember one of my brothers, he's a pastor up in Connecticut, saying to me, Ruby, you have to learn to bloom where you're planted. And
Regardless of where you're planted.
Right, he said you have to learn how to bloom where
How
you're
do
planted.
you do that?
I didn't know.
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
So what I did was I looked at what interests me. Public speaking, writing. I enjoyed being with people and things like that. So I started job posting to get me in a spot that would be more amenable to my gifts. So I posted here, posted there to move around. And then I joined an organization called Toastmasters.
Oh, I'm very familiar with Toastmasters.
And I got into that organization, and I would do my speaking. They put me in a contest, and I started winning the contest all the way up to the international platform.
Wow.
I moved all the way up to I was one of 9 of the best speakers in the world. It was a great experience. But my boss, the one that I married, that I introduced to the girl, he showed the video to one of his bosses. And so they said, wait a minute, we're wasting her talents. Let's start sending her out to do the work. So they started putting me out there to present.
This is all at work.
All at work.
Oh, amazing.
I started going around the country. I think in that time, it was a period of about 3 years. I don't think I was home more than a month out of the year. I was just running around the country, giving speeches and meeting agents and sales managers and managing part. It was phenomenal. But that's what got me ripe for that assistant vice president who said, you set a ceiling on how high.
But even though you were out and you were about and you were giving presentations and people thought you were phenomenal, you had still reached the glass ceiling?
I had reached it. It was done. I was finished because I wasn't going to go any further. I was good for that. And it had actually gotten to a point where they put me in charge of a dying program with no budget. And I used that program God used me to bring that program back to life. People were in shock. When they first gave me the program, everybody in my unit were cracking up. They said, oh, look what you got. Look what program you got. Ha, ha, ha. It's dying. And look what's going to happen. And that I guess that was just one step toward the door.
Right.
And I was really, really down about it. Right. And my boss came to me and said, Ruby, make it happen. He said, so they didn't give you any money? Find ways to promote it without money. And so I started looking into avenues to get the word out about the program. And then people started calling about it. And then I did a sales congress, and we had to turn agents away. And I remember those same people came back to me and said, we thought it was dying. I said, well, it was until I raised it back to life.
So resuscitated it, gave it some air.
But it didn't matter because they took the program and they created an entire department with that program.
And at that time, the opportunity existed, but they didn't give it to you.
They didn't give it to me. And that's why I said it was the guy was in charge, that one who had given me that epiphany. He was part of the wheeling and dealing, because some people were saying the program was a marketing program, and some said it was a products driven program. So it belonged. The marketing people say it belonged in marketing.
People were fighting over it.
Over the program
Oh,
itself.
right.
It belongs in marketing. No, it belongs in the product department. And they fought and fought and fought until the product people won out. And but it came right on the, now the season had come. So when the assistant vice president said to me, "You set a ceiling on how you've gone," I had gone through years of feeling stuck. But his words woke me up.
So when you said your brother gave you the advice about Bloom, so that was the opportunity where you found an opportunity that could lend itself to your skill set,
Yes.
and you were able to make it bloom. But when is it time to go? When is it time to say, okay, I reached my ceiling, or I'm having a hard time navigating the waters to find the opportunities that are right for me?
That's the time. You just said it. I used to tell my group that we're all going to hell. I said we're all going to hell. And I would tell them the story of the parable Jesus tells of the talent. One guy gets 10, one guy gets 5, one guy gets 1 talent. The owner goes away, and the guy with 10 makes 10 more. The guy with 5 makes 5 more. The guy with the 1 talent takes his and buries it. When the master comes back and asks for the report, well, the one with 10, you gave me 10, I doubled it. Oh man, well done. The next guy, well, I had 5 and I got 5 more. Excellent. The one who hid it was the one with the story. Well, you're a hard guy, and I knew you sowed where you didn't, you reap where you didn't sow, and you did this and you did that, and I was too scared. So I took the talent you gave me and I buried it. And here, you can have it back. It's intact. It's not messed up. It's not damaged. It's yours back. And you lazy. Yeah, I mean, you could have put it in the bank, gained interest. You could. And I would tell my colleagues there, all of us have been gifted by God, and we have chosen to bury our gifts in corporate America for the security of a regular paycheck. So to go out with the gifts we have and use them as God has given to us, well, that's too frightening. That's too much risk taking.
It kind of is.
I got a family, I got a house, I got this.
Most of us are very risk averse, especially those who you go to college to get an education and to find a corporate job,
Right.
and then many of us have to pay back our student loans. So then we're like, I want a position where I can get a steady paycheck, and primarily I want it to be risk averse.
Right. Well, Michael Baisden said one day, he was talking about how there are so many organizations that just scam you. And then he said, corporations are the biggest scam artists. He said they take energetic, innovative, creative, passion-driven young people fresh out of college, give them a job at the lowest rate they can pay them. They work and they strive, they go up the corporate ladder, and 20 years later, they downsize them, right-size them, and then they go back. And then they go back to the college campuses and then hire a whole new slew of young people. And so the key is to really take the talent that you have, the gifts that you have, and put it out there. In my case, I was always afraid of evaluation. I was afraid of failure, afraid of being judged. So when God really spoke to me and said, you got to get out and do what I've called you to do, I wasn't sure how that was going to take effect. And I was always afraid, even beginning the ministry of Safe Haven. First it was Safe Haven Ministries, then it became Safe Haven UC, United Church of Christ. Even in beginning it, I was always afraid people would just poo-poo it. There was no reason, nobody's going to come. I was always, nobody. And I've had to learn it, but it took, we're going to be celebrating 17 years in October.
That's amazing.
But it took all these years for me to figure out my job is not to please people. That I have been called to be faithful to God. And I may never be successful in the eyes of other people. I may never. It may never look like success.
Right.
But I know as long as I'm faithful to God, all is all right. When one member of my church got up and said, she just said, I have a testimony of praise, and I was holding it until you came back, Pastor. This was a woman who for the past 15 years, every Sunday, she would present us with the heritage moment. Every Sunday, and if it wasn't her, she'd have somebody come in and make sure that that heritage moment was presented. In the meantime, she's working for the city. In the years past, she retires from the city, and she gets up to praise God and say, I was offered a position right across the street from my house to provide the heritage moment to young people. A paid position. Here she was faithful, not getting paid anything,
Right.
just getting up, giving a 2 to 3 minute presentation on one of our cultural icons, heritage in our heritage, gets up, gives it, does it faithfully for 15 years. And when she gets out of retirement, God had that waiting for her.
It's amazing.
And she had already, and that's why even in bringing your authentic self to work, you just don't know what God has waiting for you on the other side. If you just do what you're supposed to be doing, and even if you get to a point like me where you just want to go, you're tired of it all, and you can't see your way out. The old folks used to tell us God will make a way out of no way.
Right.
And so you could be at the Red Sea, with the Red Sea in front of you and Pharaoh's army behind you, and there's just no way you're going to get anywhere. And God opens up a way, opens up a path for you to move forward into your opportunity, whatever that might be.